And I prefer to be that way with a little emphasis on things I have to say. So, thank you for having me. Thank you to ATB. So the introduction given was about a time when I was in the trades back in like 2007. And in the story I tell, I'll go a little deeper into it, but I got fired for being pregnant with my now 14-year-old son. And it's because my boss just said, there is no light duty. And I went home depressed, and I started a project, a blog, Women in Work Boots. And I thought the problem, 3% of the industry is women. Since the 70s, the problem is probably that women haven't been taught how to own the business, and all of the education material was driving people into unionized environments. It's just how it started when it came with the apprenticeship model. So I finished at SAIT, my apprenticeship. I was at Mayland Heights campus, which might be imploded now because it's that old of a building. And it had no windows. And I taught up there, and I was the only woman on faculty. And our materials that were being taught were typewritten on those clear sheets that had like that arm projector. And they were dated before I was born. And I was like, I went to the dean of the School of Construction. I'm like, isn't this a polytechnic? And he said, do you want a contract? And I've been on contract with SAIT since 2009, doing curriculum development, instructional design, and I teach in 3 faculties there. The international one I just started up in as well. So that encapsulates that piece. For today, I wanted to do a different style of sharing. I knew I would know some people here. So, Lauren, it is so good to see you. We were at Momentum together. Lauren is a phenomenal coach. She has coached, I would say, hundreds of startups there. And Laura was there, and then David was a participant in one of the programs there. But in the last year, I've hired David to come on and organize all things system and back end in my business. So a bit of a full circle story. I care about ATB so much because when I started the idea, Women in Work Boots, back in 2007, 8, 9, at Momentum, in the first women's venture program, ATB always opened their doors to take my questions and help me understand more about the business side of a business. Now, I colossally failed at that one. I did not monetize. I did not have a Peter or a Michelle or a Nick as my first conversation, which I recommend you do. If you are going to be starting a business or very like a CFO, what is your strategy? What is your motive? Why? Why? Are you getting a mortgage, or are you just gonna like bankroll dividends and go on vacation 10 times a year? It matters what your goal is. So talk to those people first. Biggest mistake that I made was not doing that. I had a friend who owned an oil and gas company. He kept coming to me because it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Stephen Harper made it a national initiative of status of women. That's how big it got. And I didn't monetize. I was like, I just want to share stories with everybody. And then I was burnt out, like spending 30 grand a year myself on my back end and my taxes. No strategy, 2 toddlers, having to hire a nanny just to fly because you can't fly with 2 under 2. Like, I was actually probably insane. But it worked. Really popped off. Won a bunch of awards. But I don't recommend that way. And today I'm going to tell you why. So I turned my story. If you Google me, you might find I've been in recovery for 18 years. I have a very traumatic past with domestic violence. I have a very, very, very traumatic past with being a drug addict here. I actually cried on the way here because there was a man outside the casino, an Alpha House, picking up cigarette butts. And you will look at me and not know that one time I used to go out at 4, 5, 6 in the morning to pick up cigarette butts off the street because I spent all my money on crack and cocaine while graduating from UC and getting a degree, but really having a mismanaged life. So 18 years ago, in April, I got sober from those substances after a very big ending, rock bottom, which I do in other talks. But for today, networking through narrative could be my life theme. So, I'm Jill. I took my 2 sons, aged 12 and 14, to school before I got here. One of them had volleyball at 6 a.m. actually, so I drove to school twice already this morning. And we will go to the hockey rink later today. That will be my life until May, a groundhog day of sorts in hockey rinks. I'm a single mom, and what else about me? I'm a Virgo, I overshare, and I love full moons. I ask too many questions, and I will never just trust. I question everything. I come across as cold and rude often, and I'm okay with that. So this talk today is called Pack Your Tools, You're Done. How I knew my career on the tools and the trades was over, and my marriage. So there was a knowing inside that something wasn't gonna last forever. There was this knowing inside that I was screaming for change. There was a knowing inside that I would always have to just figure it out. There was this knowing outside that it wasn't the right fit. There was this knowing outside that I didn't fit either. Then there is a knowing that it's time to go. Either you say it first or they say it first. But it's time, and you know. It's the end, and you grieve before it starts deeply. In the mind and in the soul. When that happens, it's what I call the spiritual two-hand shove. It doesn't matter your faith or belief or non-faith or non-belief. It doesn't matter. It's a nudge, it's a shove. Inside to outside, outside to inside. Invisible. Invisible nudge. And you know. You just know. When the spiritual two-hand shove happens, it doesn't matter your logic mind, making sense of it or not, or both. It doesn't matter your neurodiversity, it doesn't matter your medications or protocol, it doesn't matter your yoga, your retreats, your workshops, or your courses. It doesn't matter your therapy or the work you've done before. It happens. It's time. It's time to pack your tools, you're done. In 2009, I was in a tsunami of change again. I was 27, sober 2 to 3 years from alcohol and a crack cocaine addiction, recently back from about 8 years of running away, which I called traveling, to 15 countries. I graduated U of C in 2005, moved to India, then Korea, then back to Canada in 2007. I worked at Bow Valley College teaching, completed a journeyman in tile and stone in 2009, and got pregnant, then married. And then, when I told my boss, when I was installing stone floors at the Calgary airport, that I was 12 weeks pregnant, he said, pack your tools, you're done. And it was legal, and it was crazy. And Service Canada said I was disabled. The boss said it with as much love as he could say it with, in his words, in his way. Yet, I respected that, and I still do. However, I sank into a depression. And then I had another son, less than 2 years later. And I despised being home with 2 under 2, 2 under 3, 2 under 4, and 2 under 5. And I felt that nudge. And I felt that shove. And I tried to logic override. I completed another 4-year degree in 2 years. As a stay-at-home mom, I tried to logic override the shove so hard, and it didn't work. I had to follow something else, a feeling, a knowing and a thought that I wasn't happy where I was. In 2020, I said, I can't do this anymore. And then my marriage was over too. Over and over and over since then, this has happened. The nudge, the shove, the knowing. Then take action, then set goals, then move towards change. I mean, eventually, it has to mean something, right? It has to come full circle. It has to come to a lesson learned that you can share without emotion attached to mean something, to share something, that lesson learned. To tell full circle moments about times you either heard inside, pack your tools, you're done, or feel on the outside, fired, dumped, left, widowed, burnt out, crash, tsunami, pack your tools, you're done. Or maybe you feel it today. Maybe you've been feeling it. Maybe the stress that the doctor can't diagnose, that there's no more pills for, maybe that stress is something you need to see differently. Maybe it's something you need to feel differently. Has anyone felt that nudge lately? Saw some nods. So that's the piece I wanted to create for today. Because I don't think we talk about enough in entrepreneurship what's gotta go. When it's time to say no, shut it down. I know you invested in it. I know it's what you thought you were gonna do. I know you keep trying to force it, and it's not working. Pack your tools, you're done. I believe we need to have a real, raw look at ourselves and understand that in seasons, and in seasons of life, and in seasons of life in relationship, and in seasons in life in partnership, and in seasons of life in loving somebody that just can't love us back the same, there comes a time to say, pack your tools, you're done. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in this room who have a lot of different revenue channels or ways to get the message to people, to walk it off. To walk it off has been one of the most important things in my life to overcome what's happened to me. And we don't do that enough with each other, to say what's really going on. What's not working for you? We love the entrepreneur stories and the cheerleading events that are all about, here's what you need to do more of, more of, more of. And I challenge you today, what's less? What's gotta go? Where do you need to go from? So what I'm hoping, as we open these conversations at the table, we can dive into the layer underneath the surface of everybody's shiny, happy, front-facing pieces, and have some real raw discussions about maybe some of the stuff that's uncomfortable, maybe some of the stuff that feels like you don't quite know what to do with it yet. Put that forward, because it's in and through working together. That's why we have coaches. And for all the coaches and consultants here, you need all the people here who are the copywriters and are the digital developers and the creative developers and the behind the scenes people, so you can be great at what you're great at. That trying to do it all ourselves is one of the biggest flaws and things that we can force in being entrepreneurs, and not surrender that other piece, which is so scary, and say, maybe I do need some help. But what you have to do is have a very, very close connection with that inner part of yourself that tells you before you know that this is the group to work with. This is the problem I need to solve. This is the question to ask. Or this is the thing that's got to go so I can move into what I don't even know yet. So for today, I just wanted to do a little sound bite of that, because I think the conversation is the most important part of today for networking, that we get to know each other, that we sit at these tables, and we talk about some of the things that have gone well and that aren't going well. And it's through that that we will all grow a little bit today. Any questions for me off the top? Okay, I can see you're all spinning. Like, I didn't want to think about this.